Hello everyone, welcome to Create with Chris, where today we are going to be creating an adorable project just specially made for furry friends. Let me introduce myself. There's our little project. I am Chris Hoy and I'm working today from my home studio, so I don't have the two camera option, so we're just going to be looking down, which is okay. You don't need to see me anyways. But this is a project we are going to be creating. This is a free project or a free e-pattern that is available at Cupboard Distributing, www.cdwood.com, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we get ready to get into the project. But I wanted to introduce myself. I am Chris Hoy, owner and founder of Cupboard Distributing, CD Stencils, Scrapbook Outlet, and Pixelated Palette e-zine, as well as a designer, artist, and I'm a busy gal. So we are going to get started on this project today. This was such a fun project, and because we have incorporated stencils into our extensive CD or Cupboard Distributing line, stenciling has become one of my favorite things to do. I love to decorative paint, but every now and then you just want to do something that is a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, relaxing. If you want a fun project for a gift, this would be absolutely perfect. Anyone with a furry friend's gonna love this. And I think a while back I did another project called Fat Cat for all the cat lovers, and I just felt a little bit compelled to be creative for the dog parents as well. So we're going to get started. This is a 14-inch bone. It's really a nice size, and I thought it would be kind of fun to put little hooks on it. You could hang your dog leash, put it on a wreath. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. And for this project today, not a whole lot of supplies. I'm going to be using a stencil brush, a splatter brush, and my Epic script liner. So the tools that you're going to be needing, oh, I forgot the Identa pen. In addition to the surface and the stencils is very minimal. And this is a fun project you can do with the kids. You can do it with the grandkids. Like I said, it's just an easy, fun project. Now, this one I created. I used bleached sand, antique white, and soft black. But I thought it would be fun to offer an option. So I decided to go a different route with the one we're going to be doing today. Still the same idea, but I thought it would be fun to go with gray. And I did base coat it with chalky gray gesso. However, you could go with gray sky, which is almost identical. You can see how close these are in color. And this one is slate gray, and then we'll add soft black. So you can see the color families. We're just using two tones. It's still monochromatic with the black in there. And I do like soft black in lieu of lamp black because it's a much, it's not quite so stark and dark and in your face. It just gives a more professional kind of a finished look. So we're gonna go with the gray tones today. And if you are a decorative painter, I'll give you a couple options because, you know, we love to pick up those brushes and do a little bit of shading, this, that, and the other. And the girls at work are always getting on me and they're going, Chris, just create it and let it go. But, you know, I think, oh, if we just shade this and do a little bit more here and there, and they're always giving me a hard time. So I'll give you some options as we go. Now, when I put my base coat on, I did use my 4-inch foam roller. I like this really well because it gets a nice, smooth, even coat on. And if you don't have that, oh, here we go. I do like to use the spouncers because they will smooth the paint on. I just like that denseness of the foam that gets it nice and even. I did put 2 light coats on. Because I used chalky gesso, I did not need to go in with a multi-purpose sealer. If you are using the Americana acrylic paint, go ahead and put a sealer on it. And what that does, it's just going to ensure that that will never peel off or chip or anything like that. Okay, let's go ahead. I do have a couple stencils. I thought it was fun to have just this little soft hint of paw prints in the background. And it just kind of dresses it up. It keeps it from looking so plain. And that's so very trendy today, just to have that little more oomph in the background, just to give it a little more pop, a little more design. So I am using the paw print stencil, and we're only going to have to do position this a couple times. I like to pay attention to where the holes are for the sign. I don't want that right in that little paw print, so I'm just going to scoot it over a little bit. The background is very subtle, so will it really matter? No, but I like to pay attention to those details because that sometimes is kind of what sets it apart. Alrighty, I am using my Spectacular stencil brush. I am not a stenciler by nature. I really struggle with stenciling to get that nice, soft, kind of an airbrush look that I prefer. So I tried different stencil brushes, couldn't find anything I liked, so I designed my own stencil brush, and it probably took me about a year to a year and a half to get just the right bristle. The benefits of this, the bristles are very soft, so you can get a beautiful airbrush effect. You can do cheeks, you can, it's just so extremely versatile. If you do want a nice solid opaque coverage, this is perfect as well. Also, I'm not a very patient person, and with the bristle brushes and some of the other brushes, you have to wait until they dry in between coats, and I am not that person. I want to be able to move on. Now, see where this is split down the middle? You can line this up so that it continues almost like a wallpaper, but what I prefer to do, I'm just going to cover that up. And that way I won't have to try to match it up because I'm going for this really soft look. And if I have one that stops right dead in the middle, and then I move it over and match it up, I'm going to have to blend it in. It's just much easier to create a whole new paw print than trying to blend that in. So I have a little bit of, let me get my colors right here. This is slate gray. It's a little bit darker. Working it into my brush. I want a nice amount of paint in there, but I don't want it heavy on the tips. Now, once I have it in there, I'm going to just kind of brush it over a paper towel just to remove heaviness. I want a soft airbrush look. And I have just a very light, almost a feather touch. And I don't grip it very hard, so it's easy to let it fall out of your hand. And I'm going to do just a light swirl. And when you first do it, it's kind of hard to tell how much, but there's always more there. Look how soft, and it's just almost invisible until you lift it up and you're going, oh wow, there's a lot there. Just going to wipe that off a little bit more, very light touch. And I'll just go over this. Now, as I proceed, I'm using more and more paint in my bristles so I can increase the pressure just a tad. You can lift it up and peek at it and see if it's looking like you want. And then I'll just continue on until I get, now down here where we have a partial, I don't want that. I'm just going to skip that. This one I'll do even though it kind of spills off the edge, and you can see what I'm talking about. I've got a little bit here. I will go back and enhance that, and you can go back and make it darker. Isn't that cool? I mean, just that soft hint of color, and you can see how quickly you can add these on. Probably the biggest problem I have is knowing where if I missed one, like right there, I missed one. and I can go back and add that in. Now, if you want this to be just a little bit stronger, you can always either go back and do a second coat or apply more paint this first time around. Now, I just reloaded my brush. Every time I reload, I hit the paper towel just to make sure. I don't want to start with a fresh load of paint and be extremely noticeably darker. So I'll just touch that up. And I can take a peek. I missed another one. Isn't that funny? And that's why I create, I always tack it down well with painter's tape so that I can lift it up and look and put it back down. And because I have such a light application of paint, if I decide to make it a little darker, I don't have to wait until it dries. It's just going to be dry enough that I can go back and enhance it just a little bit more. And you just want it kind of even. Now, what happens if you get it on too heavy and too dark? You can do a couple things. You can always wipe it off, paint over it, whatever. You can lightly sand it, and you can also take a damp paper towel and sort of kind of wet sand it. And see how these are staggered? I'm just going to do the same thing with this row here, kind of stagger it just a little bit. Now that's going to make it off over here, but I can fill that in. And we'll just... Now I'm pressing hard here because there's no paint where the actual sticky part of the tape is. Not pressing hard anywhere that I have freshly stenciled. And we'll go ahead and get this on here. Again, I just have a very light pressure. I want to make sure that it kind of matches up with what I've previously stenciled. And then I can go back and stencil with a little more confidence. And we'll just get the rest of this stenciled on. It really does work better if you have a system while you're stenciling, especially if you're doing a very light dry brush kind of stencil, kind of top to bottom, left to right. That way you're not going to miss portions of your stencil. Like I did over here. I missed several. I was talking and not paying attention. That was a big part of it. And we do have that design or the border around the outer edge that's going to fill up in case I have an empty spot where the paw print is. And I'll show you what else you can do to kind of fill that in. Now be careful down here because I shifted it up to stagger that center design, and I don't want to get paint off the edge of the stencil. And it's very, very light. I've kind of run out of paint, so I'm just going to go back and deepen those down just a tad bit more. So much easier to go back and add more than it is to try to worry about removing excess paint. Okay, I've got one more row over here. I'm going to put one down below here. And you can just shift your stencil and put them wherever you want. And we'll just add some more right. Kind of shifting it around here. I want to make sure that I stagger in between each one of these. You know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to match it up and, well, I think it's going to be easier just to do this. I don't want two rows of the same thing. That's what I'm kind of looking at. Make sure that I have enough on there. I do not. I'm going to move that over just a touch. Got it a little bit too close there. That's okay. It's so very light. And I don't have much paint over here. Here we go. Make sure that I have all of that on there. we go. And I'll just do this one row up through here. It's a few little paw prints on there. And over here, I think I want one small one in this little spot. So I'll pick a tiny one. And I don't care if part of it goes off. I just want to get a little one up there. So we've got all of the paw prints on there, just like that. And I thought, gosh, this would be so pretty in blues and aquas. And I'll show you, we have another new stencil we just came out with. And this is called Wash Your Hands and Say Your Prayers. Jesus and germs are everywhere. And I made this, see if you can see that. I painted beads and did that cute little bubble handle on there. I thought that turned out really nice. But just the two tones of aqua makes a really pretty background. And I think this is going to be a free pattern also that will be on a little bit later this week. I just painted it over the weekend. But that gives you an idea of using different colors. All right, let's go ahead and put Wipe Your Paws on here. Now, if you notice, Wipe Your Paws does not quite fit on there. So we're going to have to shift the stencil around just a teeny bit. I'm going to start with the biggest words. And we want to make sure that they're centered here. We'll bring those down, but you want to leave a little bit of room for the border. And I did kind of bump around the letters just a touch, which is fine. It makes it look a little bit more creative that way. Get it centered. I am going to do Wipe Your first, and that way I know where my paws will fit in. Again, I want to take the tape and anchor it down so it doesn't scooch around on me. Now, if you want super crisp, clean lines, always do a couple light coats as opposed to a heavy coat. Getting the soft black, loading it well into my stencil brush. Because I'm not doing an airbrush finish, I'm working the paint into the bristles, and you're not going to be able to see. But I don't have heavy paint on my brush. You can take it across the paper towel to double check, but I do not. I don't want to get any paint in my paws down here, so you can take a piece of tape and cover it. I have found that using either your Painter's Pal or this is our new Angle Mate to kind of mask this off is a lot easier because I don't have to remove tape. And sometimes if you have tape on these delicate stenciled areas, when you go to lift them, it pulls and it might damage your stencil. And I'm very gently, I'm not pushing this hard. I found out if you really whack it hard, you shove the paint underneath, and we want to make sure we get that nice, clean, crisp edge on all the stencil sections. And I'll just continue on. This will take 2 coats, and I'm not sure, maybe for the sake of time, we'll just do 1 coat to kind of move it along a little quicker. And I do tap it on a paper towel just out of habit because also it gives me, ensures that I don't have a big gob of paint on my bristles. You know, acrylic paint, when it dries, it shrinks up just a little bit. So even if you think you've got a great coverage, have you ever stenciled or painted something and then when it dries, you see all these empty spaces and you're going, really? Did I miss that much? Well, no, it probably just, yeah, I can see a lot of light areas, but I have a super clean edge. Okay, and then I'm just going to shift this up and I can see where my underneath letters are. And I can line this up, make sure that I get it nice and straight. I can see the letters behind there. make sure they don't touch. They just want to be close. And we'll go ahead. I want to make sure that it's centered here as well. I think I'll scoot it over just a wee bit. And you can measure this if you want. I usually have a pretty good eye for centering. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing down here. I don't want to get paint up there, so I'm just going to lay that across there. Peace of mind. And you know, you can clean all of this up, but save yourself a little bit of hassle by taking care when you apply the paint to do a nice job, and then you won't have to work so hard. Load just a little more paint. I have found when it comes to stenciling that stenciling and patience are very good friends. And Chris and Patience are not, but we're learning to be. So I do have to keep reminding myself to slow down and just allow the paint to go on nice and smooth and even. 2 coats is so much better than a messy first coat. And it's so hard to clean all that up. And it's aggravating. We don't need that hassle. Okay, we're almost finished here with the first coat. And I don't know why, but I skipped to the end. That's part of probably my patience issue. Maybe I feel like I'm moving a little faster if I just go ahead and jump to the end. Now the stencils are created with this little bridge to keep them from falling apart. And that's that little divider that's in between the letters. It's a matter of personal preference. When I stencil, a lot of times, and I'll show you the difference here, and you can see this very much so needs a second coat. The little place here on the W and the little place in the A, a lot of times, well, sometimes I'll leave it, sometimes I'll fill it in. It's just, again, a matter of personal preference. And what I'll do is just simply take my liner, Epic Script liner, grab a little bit of whatever color you're using to stencil that, and just connect the little bridges. To me, it makes it look a little more hand painted. And again, take your time and do a good job. If you take 2 coats to do the stenciling, it'll probably take 2 coats to do the fill-in as well. Makes sense, right? The O's here, we need to grab that and get that in there. Just a little more water on my brush to help that paint flow. My goodness, I need something on my brush. There we go. And I think I'll do this over here on the P as well. Well, I want to pull that down. And just follow the direction of that ladder. And I'm going to grab a little more water on my brush. If your paint is dragging, you just do not have enough water. There we go. And I'll do the P over here as well. And I do better pulling it towards me. Everyone has a way that works best. Do you need to do this? No, just personal preference. So I will go back and put that second coat on, but I'm going to skip it for now. I want to put these little paw prints on there. And I thought it would be fun to have them walking up and then walking back down. Just, you know, I was trying to think, well, maybe I should put 2 here and 2 there, but it was too much the same, and sometimes it gets a little bit too simplistic and a little kind of boring. And I wanted to make his little paws go, pull it back here, this way, this way, that way, this way, that way. So it looked like he was walking. And there is one little paw print on the stencil, and this is a cute stencil because actually you could put Beware of Dog Kisses on the other side if you wanted to flip it over. And I would put on the bone, I would put a little heart, a little red heart. Wouldn't that be cute? Okay, so we're gonna put the paw prints on here. You need to make sure you're gonna fit them on. I like my little white pencil. This is the chalk pencil. And we can put one paw print here, one there. And this is kind of my dividing line there, and one there. Just gives me an idea where I'm going to go with this. Once I get it on there, and let's see. Actually, I'm going to anchor it down here. I don't want to put my tape on those letters. They're still rather fresh. Still going with soft black. And I'm a messy stenciler, so I'm going to cover this up so I don't get paint on that. Again, just be patient. I have a fair amount of paint on my brush, but I'm not pouncing heavily. I just want to have a nice even pounce, and you can see how it fills in. First coat's just going to be there to give you a decent coverage. Your second coat's what's going to finish it off and make it look perfect. Okay, we'll go this way on that little paw. And I'm going to switch my tape over here because it will be in the right place now that I won't cover up my letters. And did not reload my brush. However, if you notice, I'm a little heavier with my pouncing because I know how much paint is on the brush. And again, I always put my little template down so that I don't get black paint in any of the lettering. It will happen. I know me well enough. And where's my little circle right there? So, do I normally get paint over there? But no, you can see I could, and you can see how close that is. So it's just my little safeguard to try to keep the paint off of these other cutouts. Oh, and one more over here. I was going to tell you too, on the background, we just created another new stencil, and I was playing around with it on the over the weekend. And I used the gray chalky gesso on the background, but I wanted to give it kind of a wood grain effect. Oh, that's cute. So I used this is the texture brush, the graining tool, and I just kind of, and this is a nice stencil. I just pulled this across to create that wood grain. So if you wanted to add a little texture to this, you could do the same thing with the texture tool. And then I flipped it over and just did the same thing. We've got the little paw prints. We're going this way and that way and this way and that way. And we can pop those on real quick. Real quick does not mean we're gonna be messy here. Again, I'm gonna have to go back and put the second coat on. Where's my tool? I get close to those cutout places, I get a little bit nervous. And I'm having trouble not having the visual I normally have with the two cameras. So I probably have gone off screen a couple times. I apologize for that. And even though this is still a fairly good coverage, my paint's not going to be messy, so wet or so messy that I can't lay my stencil over and continue to work. Probably would be smarter to start at the top and work your way down. But this way I know exactly where my paw prints are going to be landing. And I'll just do this again rather quickly just so we can get them on there and move on. Okay, maybe like right here. I kind of lost my little white circle. So if you're doing a whole bunch of these, I would put the first coat on all of them and then go back and do by the time you do your second coat, that first coat's going to be nice and dry. It's not that heavy. There we go. And we'll pop this last one on real quick. I am kind of rushing, so if they're not proportioned exactly where they need to be, it's just one of those things. You slow down a little bit, you're going to always do a better job. Alrighty, so pretend we have two coats on everything. So the little paw prints are going up on this side and down on this side. And there's a couple things you can do at this point. I did go with the Identipen to do the border around the outside, but I was also thinking that it would be kind of, you could do a little bit of a float for the soft black around the outside, just to give a little more of an edge, or maybe even this slate gray would be a nice, in fact, thinking about it, maybe the slate gray would be better because it's going to be a softer border. Actually, let's put a little bit on to see what that looks like. I always think a soft shade will help kind of create the outer edge. And it's going to be very soft. So if you decide to shade around the outer edge, I would do it before you put the lettering on, because actually I don't think I'm going to go over the middle. I'll just do the side edges here. So it just kind of softens that edge a touch. Is it real noticeable? No, but it always adds that little bit more that often just kind of sets it apart and makes it look a little more finished. And we'll just start there. We don't want on the paw print. See, yeah, it would be easier if you do it before the... Isn't this what's fun about decorative painting? Stenciling, creating, we have that option to just take it one step further. That's a nice little touch on that. I don't know if it shows up very much, but it just kind of softens it down just a little bit. And then on that same note, on the paw prints, what you could do, I was thinking about this would be kind of fun. I've got my little 1/4 inch angle and some white paint. And I know the girls are going to be saying, oh, you don't want to do all that work. Well, maybe we do. We can just put a little bit of shading. See, I love to shade, so for me to do this, it adds a lot of fun. Okay. Oh, now you gotta admit, that's pretty cute. So that would be an up to you kind of choice to add that little bit of shading, but I think that looks like a lot of fun. At this point, I still thought that it needed something else. Hopefully my little borders are dry enough. I want to put, use the Identipen to go around the outer edge. Okay, here's the thing. If you have an Identipen to do any line work with, you have to make sure that this is dry because it will not write on a wet surface at all. And what I did was, this is not even, not perfect, and everybody has a range of motion with their wrist. Let it work for you. So I'll just start here and I'll go until it's uncomfortable, and that's where I stop, and put a couple little lines in there. And same thing, I'll just keep going until I get to the point where it's a little uncomfortable, and then I'll stop. So I have a light touch. Each section does not have to be the same. So you can make them as long or short as you want. If you try to get them perfect, they have to be perfect or they're gonna look not right. Does that make sense? They either need to be perfect or they need to be just random. And I don't want to stop at the hole either. So I can go around here. Just let my wrist, that motion of my wrist, follow the edge of the plaque. And just very easily, because I'm doing short strokes, it's very easy to keep that line fairly smooth and even. Don't press hard. That makes it, when you press hard, you're gonna see the line gets kind of wobbly and uneven. Light touch. Take a breath, let your hair down. And we'll go across here. These letters were shifted a little bit higher than on the first one I did, because I didn't have to kind of jog around them. What a difference this little border makes. If you're kind of struggling for some way to finish up the edging, depending on what it is. This is a super good way to just kind of add a little bit of whimsy and dress it up just a touch. So that looks pretty good, but I thought it still needed a little bit more. And I decided to add a little bit of splattering. Now everybody has different ways of splattering. I used to use a toothbrush. I did where you had a brush and you whack it, but then I ran across this brush and it's really stiff bristles. But I love it because it's not messy. I don't get as messy. So I'm gonna take the brush and dip it in water and just tap it into the paint to thin my paint out. The thinner the paint, the bigger the splatters. Now I am right-handed, so I'm gonna hold it in my left hand and point it down, and then I can pull back on the clean part. I'm not gonna get my fingers, the paint's on the tip, and I'll just let it flip down. Always test it on your palette. Just like a shotgun, the closer you get, the smaller the pattern, the further away, the larger the pattern. So I can be pretty specific in where I want this to go if I zoom in on it. I just love that little bit of flecking in there. It adds so much. I call this white noise, where it just very quietly kind of pulls that background together. what a cute project. You know, I really like this gray tone really well. I think that turned out cute. And I still think maybe if you wanted to, you could put like little red hearts in the paw prints. You know, if you wanted to add a little bit of color to it. Two totally different looks, same stencil, same design. Such a fun project. And what's it been? Maybe, I don't know, if I hadn't talked so much, we probably could have gotten it finished in maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes. Super quick project. It's a great way to be creative. Again, if you're a decorative painter and you love to add those little decorative touches, jazz up the letters, put some shading on those paw prints. I probably went a little bit heavy with my white over here, so I can go back and just tone that back down with a little bit of a back float. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of them because I like the way that looks. So, great project, fun time. While I've got you here though, I did want to talk about something else that's coming up. And this is our Spring Fest, April 15th through 17th. And this is with myself, Deb Mishma, Sandy LaFleur, Sharon Cook, Marlene Fudge. Just a super time we're planning. We're going to be doing special events, sales, convention, pricing, flash sales, coupons if you sign up. You need to go to www.cdwood.com and look for Zoom classes, Spring Fest, and you go in and sign up. You can sign up for all, you can sign up for just one, but it's going to be a great time. Each project has tons of techniques on it, and I happen to have mine here. This is my Gnome Grown, just a delightful spring design. A lot of technique in that, and then this one is so totally different. This is very rustic, and never painted pussy willows before, but this is so much fun. I had such a great time doing it. So join us, or go online to www.cdwood.com and check it out. I think it's kind of the event of the year. You don't want to miss out on it. Alrighty, back to Wipe Your Paws. Everything is available at Cupboard Distributing, www.cdwood.com. The surface, there's a free download pattern that you can create this one. Shake it up and do some different colors. It's just a good time. Alrighty, so I think we've covered everything. I want to thank you for joining me today on Create with Chris. And I've lost my little logo here. I can usually just kind of zoom in. There we go. There we are. Create with Chris. I thank you for joining me and look forward to our next time together. Bye-bye.